Introduction. How did people in France live in the Middle Ages? What did they wear? Well, for starters, your rank usually affected what type of clothes you wore. For example, silk was only worn by the wealthiest of classes and by the church. In France, you could tell someone's class instantly by what they wore. The richer you were, the brighter, more colorful, and elaborate were your clothes. Rich people had many suits of clothes, whereas the poor only had one that they wore for as long as it held out. What type of games did they play? For indoor games, nobles would play chess, checkers, and backgammon. For outdoor games, they would do archery and jousting. Lower-class people, such as peasants, would play games like football. But it wasn't like the game we play now. It was much more violent. What were their religions? People were Catholics, and they were very passionate about their religion. There were the Crusades, an army of knights and ordinary people who marched off to Jerusalem to fight the Muslims. Then there were the Crusades inside France itself, called the Albigensian Crusade. The Albigensians, also known as the Cathars, believed that the physical world and everything on it was the property of evil, and that the spiritual world was the property of goodness. They believed that everything on earth was evil. This included all rules created by the church and the church itself. They didn't believe in marriage, government, courts, and laws, and saw it as their duty to fight against these things, as they were the work of the devil. They didn't marry, they murdered priests and government officials, and regarded all property as belonging to everyone. The Cathars were later on wiped out by a huge French army. What type of inventions did they use? People think of the Middle Ages as a time where nothing much happened, apart from death and wars. This isn't true. It was a time of great innovation. Here are 5 inventions that were made during that time. The heavy plow, although a simple idea, was revolutionary. It was stronger and easier to use, even though it was heavier. They added wheels, which meant a larger moldboard that was enforced with metal. This meant that the seeds could go deeper into the soil and were more likely to grow. Another invention was the hourglass, which was at the time one of the few reliable methods of measuring time. Mechanical clocks existed, but were extremely expensive. The hourglass was also used with the magnetic compass to help navigate. The blast furnace was used to make iron. It was a big improvement and meant better quality iron, which also meant better quality tools, better quality weapons, and better quality household goods. Spectacles were invented in the Middle Ages too, used for optical purpose, and magnifying lenses were used to help read. This meant that people who had bad sight could see, and that they wouldn't have to stop working because of their sight. Probably the most significant invention of the medieval period was the printing press. Up until then, all information such as books, laws, and proclamations had to be written out and copied by hand. This was time-consuming, expensive, and prone to mistakes. It also meant that knowledge was kept by very few people. The printing press could print 250 sheets per hour, where previously 250 sheets couldn't be made in a whole week. It also meant that knowledge became accessible to many.